The very first meeting I ever had with Andy, we had another builder in the room and we had a structural engineer, and the builder slides a foundation design over to this engineer, and he says, will this work? And the engineer looked at it for a second and he said, mathematically, he's like, I'd never put it underneath my house. And he slid it back over to him and he said, that's all I needed to hear. Andy and I were taken back. Like, okay, what would you design for our house? Why that story is so significant? Because it was the first meeting that we had, but it was probably the clearest vision of what God was going to do in us in our decision making along the journey. I feel like that's the filter that we've brought into the business. And so today it exists across all different types of building science. And I would say that when Andy and I kind of came out of the gate, if you were just to look at just raw decisions, the term of structural and energy have always been in the matrix that we've had to consider. So just a few things I think behind the walls that people won't ever see. There's been different foundations that we've experimented with. This is the foundation that we've landed on today. And a post-tension foundation, it's essentially a waffle system that they use to build bridges. And so concrete is weak in tension. It can break, a 4-inch piece can break over 4 feet, but it's incredibly strong in compression. What these cables do is, to the tune of about 30,000 pounds, is they compress on this slab. It takes a 4-inch piece of concrete and makes it act like it's a 6-inch piece of concrete when this home is sitting on top of it. So the design, each home has footings that run through the middle of it that are also braced, but it essentially adheres everything within that footprint of that home, and it is bound together. So depending on the soil below, we may have clay soils, we may have sandy soils, we may have rock soils. This is going to transcend soil composition for a large part, which it's needed in some areas it's not. But if we're rolling the dice on the grade that's going in on, we feel like it's stronger. You get separation and you get lifting is a common thing that would happen in something that's not a post-tension foundation. Walls move. A lot of times over time there's settlement. You see actually diagonal cracks that happen, maybe coming from the corners of windows. Wind has the ability to create moments. It may hit a roof on one side and affect the foundation or the far side of the home from where the wind hit the roof. There's movement sometimes in tile. There's cracks that start to eclipse what we would consider to be a heat-related crack in concrete and gets into structural stuff. I mean, that's been kind of the building science where we've arrived today. We've moved into a 2x6 wall. We've moved into fully foaming the envelope of the home. What comes with that is a heat and air system that has to be now engineered to perform, which now starts to take on moisture control, which water is one of the greatest enemies of the home. What I love about the 2x6 wall construction and the foam combined with it is that it eliminates conduction from the air coming from the outside in. And it's done because 2x6s are built on a 24-inch center. It takes twice as long for that energy transfer to happen from the outside in. And it's got a foam component that not only is fully enclosing, but it's also rigid, and so it's stronger in structure. What people will feel when they get into a house more or less is that they're going to feel that it's quieter. There's less racking sometimes when doors slam. It's probably a subtle thing. But from the benefit, I think, again, and they can see this when they go up in their attic, but most attics sit at about 140 degrees in the summertime. And when your units are working in that environment, it takes a toll on the unit. It doesn't last as long. It's going to break down sooner. And so when you fully foam encapsulate that house, these units are basically performing in the same environment that you're living in. And so consequently, the longevity of the home. The other thing that probably gets people in trouble more than anything is water. And from this water defender kind of label we've given ourselves is to basically take it where the water actually penetrates the home and how do you mitigate that. And it happens at windows, it happens in showers. Ultimately, when we're channeling water and telling it where to go, then the life of the home is preserved. So behind your brick pocket sits a set of sheathing, and that sheathing has now a wrap on it that acts like Gore-Tex. That Gore-Tex lets water out as far as a vapor, but it protects water from going in. If it's not taped properly, or if it's stapled, they can tear. You start to have a vulnerable product. People can apply materials and they can put things up, but if they're not done properly, then I think that it compromises the product. I would want the walls to say probably something, kind of like, we got this. Do you do life? We're going to give you privacy. We're going to give you shelter. We're going to give you stability. We're going to protect your investment. It's more intrinsically important to us that we can go to sleep at night knowing that we've done an alignment on what we're doing, from, if you just use the term behind the walls, whether it be foundation or whether it be structural, then and it's not that the things that are shiny aren't important, because they are terribly important, but people just don't get a chance to weigh in on that part. That's going to be their forever decision. When you drive down the road and you look at your house, you want to love where you live. And when you get in your home, you want to enjoy what it's supposed to do what it's supposed to do.